This is the Construction Leading Edge podcast from constructionleadingedge.com and buildermastermindgroup.com. My name is Todd DeWalt. It's my job to help you, the construction business owner and leader, eliminate chaos and maximize profits. I've got a great interview for you today with my longtime friend and client and brilliant guy, Neil Sundresh. He is the owner of Glacier West Construction. I've known Neil for about 3.5 years since we've been working together, and you're going to get a lot out of this podcast. Here's what you're going to learn about: the fat steaks and bourbon strategy and how Neil uses it to, as he says, rob his clients. We also talk about, he talks about what it means to steal the magic sushi sauce. He talks about what it means to really scratch a client's itch, what it's like working with customers who can't have mistakes, why Neil says every builder should be a designer. We also discuss the top-down approach to quality control and how it ties into sales. Neil talks about the importance of staying the heck out of the way, how delegation is not the same as autonomy, how he has grown his business dramatically in the last few years, and how he is now, quote, insulated from problems, and how sometimes you're not in charge of your growth. Neil's a good friend of mine, and he has a brilliant mind. He's a funny guy, and you're going to enjoy this one. I do have a few resources to share with you before we jump into the interview. Here you go. Let me ask you a question. Are you tired of second-guessing yourself on the big decisions you need to make as a business owner? Ever wish you could have somebody else to talk to who has experience owning a construction business and they're not a competitor, just to bounce ideas off? Do any of these 4 statements sound familiar? Number 1, I want to be constantly learning and improving, and if somebody else has figured out a better way, I'd like to know it. Number 2, I'd like to be part of something bigger than just myself, to be part of a group that's making a difference in the construction industry. Or number 3, I've been figuring things out on my own for a long time. Am I doing it right? Is there a better way? Or number 4, I don't know what I don't know, and I would sure like to avoid the expensive learning curve. And if you've dealt with some of these things, maybe you've tried a few solutions to try to solve these challenges, like reading business books and then trying to figure out how to apply it to your business. Or maybe joining a Facebook group or 2 and then wading through all the negativity and BS that's in there. Maybe you've joined a CEO group or a networking group, but they don't understand construction because they don't own construction businesses. And maybe you've even joined a local group of people doing the same type of work, but they're your competitors, and you're not really sure how transparent they're being or how transparent you should be. Imagine being able to make confident decisions about your business. I'm talking about new hires, new systems, new processes, when to fire bad clients, when and how to grow your business. Imagine having the security and support from a group of peers who are doing the same type of work, who are not in your backyard, they're not your competitors, where you could say, here's what I'm having challenges with, how would you work through this? Well, I'd like to tell you about the Builder Mastermind group, which is helping dozens of construction business owners solve those exact challenges. Here's how it works. When you join the Builder Mastermind group, you'll be placed in a small group of other construction business owners who are doing similar work with similar sized businesses, and they're not competing with you. Number 2, you'll have monthly calls with your small group where you'll discuss challenges and best practices around a specific topic. Number 3, you'll receive an execution plan to prepare for each month's call and to have a way to figure out your action items so that you can execute on them after the call. And then number 4, you'll also receive a summary of ideas and resources shared from all the small groups. In addition to that, you'll be part of a Slack channel where you can message people in your small group or people in other small groups as well. To get all of the details and see what our Builder Mastermind group members would tell you about their experience, go to buildermastermindgroup.com. That's buildermastermindgroup.com. In the last few years, premium outdoor spaces have become a must-have feature in high-end construction projects. Leading contractors say that Infratec heating systems are their brand of choice. Infratec Heaters provide energy-efficient ambient warmth that allows homeowners to live outdoors during cooler months. Clients love them because they can enjoy 100 more nights a year outside, and contractors love the versatility, from a range of heater capacities to mounting options that can either seamlessly disappear or accentuate a high visual impact location. Infratec has made their products in the USA for over 60 years, so there are no lag times due to issues with the global supply chain, which is a big deal these days. Every product is supported with the most extensive 3-year warranty in the industry, and they offer incredible live technical support at every stage of the job. Infratec is specified at the world's most prestigious properties. Learn why and sign up for a free consultation at infratec-usa.com/leading edge. That's infratec-usa.com/leading edge. All right, now here's my conversation with my friend Neil Sundresh of Glacier West Construction. Enjoy. Neil Sundresh, you were on the podcast a few years ago. We've been working together for going on 3.5 years now, I believe. But give us for the folks listening, give them a brief overview of name of your company, where you're located, what kind of work you do, how many employees you have, that sort of thing.
Yeah, thanks for having me again, Todd. It's good to be a part of this. My name's Neil Sundresh, and I'm the owner and general manager at Glacier West Construction. We are a Western Canada-based firm with our primary operations in British Columbia. We also work in Alberta, Manitoba, and in some remote parts of Canada as it suits the client. We've got about 30 people, between 30 and 35 people working at the company, depending on our work level. The majority of our work is construction management. And we focus on a few different specialized sectors. We don't do a lot of hard bid work. We're involved right up front from design usually and helping a client develop a concept.
And give us an idea of the type of projects you work on and the size of those projects.
Sure, yeah. So we, like anybody, we'd like to have all big projects that are, huge dollar values, but it's just not the reality when you're a firm of our size. We've done projects at Glacier that, in the $50-60 million range. But we're currently working on a few projects that are $50,000 also. And we're in a pretty unique position because we have a huge amount of repeat business. I would say 80-90% of our work is repeat business. So you can't just do their big projects. You got to do small projects too. It's part of the gig. So we are, involved in different size projects and working in a few different locations as our clients grow in their own respective geography. Sometimes they make so much money that they need to go somewhere else to plunder and pillage. So we follow them and help them build their businesses in other provinces.
So let's talk about how much your business has grown in the last 3 years.
Sure. So I bought the business in 2016. And so that would have been 5 going on 6 years ago. And I would say that in the last 3 years, we've tripled our book of business. I never like to speak in terms of millions or tens of millions, as that's our volume or our backlog, because I can never rationalize that over the course of a year. But when I look strictly at revenue, expenses, and profits, and the number of people that work here, I would say that we've effectively tripled the business.
So tripling your business in a handful of years, you don't do any marketing, right? You don't do any advertising, a lot of repeat business. What would you say have been some of the keys to that growth?
Yeah, I don't know. I've had to think about that a lot lately. We don't have a dedicated salesperson. We don't have a dedicated sales team. And, I would say that we're a medium-sized construction firm in our geographies. Yeah, and I think about how we get business. So, like I said, a big part of our business is repeat business, and that's just all about client care. So, from the minute we're on a job, we're signed up for a project. It's our project. We wear it, and we just make it so that the client really doesn't have to worry about it, other than checking in with us, remotely. We try to look after all of it. We rarely have clients working with designers directly or vendors directly. It's pretty much always through us. We become the prime, so to speak. One throat to choke. It's the one throat to choke approach, and I've grown to love that, and it's I think our whole company's grown to just expect to be involved in managing all kinds of crap for clients. We help them buy equipment. We issue POs for them on equipment. We hire consultants. We go to the city meetings for them. We help them get their permits. We fill out the forms for them. I've even helped clients get CFIA approval or USDA approval for their facilities, not even construction work. I guess I'm saying this because that's how we sell. That's how we sell. I think, and if I put myself in a client's shoes, if he can look at us and say, look, these guys, if I call them, the minute I call them and the minute I give them a PO or a handshake or whatever it is, they're just going to look after stuff for me. Then I think we alienate ourselves from all our competition. And the beauty of it is we've done it now a few times. I've got a few client groups that I've done, say, 10 or 15 projects for. And I say the collective Glacier West has done 10 or 15 projects for. Why would they go anywhere else? There's no reason for them to go anywhere else. So you talk about sales. Well, if we're taking care of a group of businesses that are exclusively using us, mostly, with some exceptions, they have their network of other processors, developers, and just by osmosis, we end up doing work for other groups as well. So I'd like to say that we went out and picked this work up and we did that and we did that, but I'd be full of shit. We didn't do that. It's entirely through a referral network that we're a part of.
You told me a story at some point in the last year, maybe on one of our calls, about a client had sent you an email and said, "Hey, Neil, can you help me with getting some sort of the equivalent of a USDA approval on a project?" And I remember you told me about it and you were like, "Why would he send me this?" And you did something a little different than some contractors had. And then the response you got from the client was surprising. Do you remember that situation? Talk about that a little bit, if you would.
Yeah. So, we have these relationships and they're super open with clients. I would say sometimes they're too open. We probably need to be a little bit more formal with people, but before they've agreed to do a project, they'll contact you and say, "Hey, look, can you just do this for me? Figure out if this piece of land works. Figure out if we can get a zoning approval here." And we just do it, right? We bill hourly for it and we always get paid. And it was one of those things. I got an email from a guy. He says, "Can you please," and I don't want to mention their firm, but "can you please go and find out how I can export this product to Brazil?" And I was like, why is he asking me this? This is not in my wheelhouse at all. But I like doing that kind of stuff once in a while. It really gets you fired up, right? If you're calling and chasing something you don't know about, it's exciting because you're learning, and it's just so. I ended up calling CFIA, which is Canadian Food Industry Association. I called USDA. I had contacts at both of them. I ended up making some pretty actually strong allies at the USDA based in Canada. And So then I went back and I reported back to him with all the rules and the regulations about what he could and couldn't export. And then he replied to me, "Sorry, wrong Neil."
That's hilarious. Yeah. But I would say that speaks volumes about your approach to sales and business development, and it's probably a big part of why you get repeat business. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Let's talk about one of the business development strategies we share, which is bourbon and fat steaks.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
How does that method work for you?
I mean, yes, I would say yes, and it's an indirect approach, right? Usually, I think it's because of the sectors we work in, we're expected to pay. It's not like an option. So I've just embraced that. Hey, when we go out for dinners or lunch meetings, I'm going to be picking up the check as a contractor, and but I'm more deliberate about it now. I tag it bourbon, fat steaks and bourbon. And, you pick up a good spot, you go, and everybody can share some camaraderie. But I think it's a good platform to learn a few things. The first thing is I think you can learn about their company's vision, which is usually changing. It's changing probably every year, if not a little bit more frequently. If you can align yourself with somebody else's vision, then you know why they're making certain decisions. You understand why they might cancel a project midstream. You understand all this stuff about their organizations. And so when those things happen that would otherwise alarm you as a contractor, you have more awareness about their business. And so, you can take it all in stride and keep going. The other part of it is you're getting feedback from these people. And I'm really selfish. When I get into those settings, I immediately turn on my how can I rob this client's hat? How can I take advantage of this client? And what I mean by that is most of these guys are 100 millionaires, if not billionaires. They're running companies 30, 40 years. The experience, the stories, the techniques they use to handle stuff in their own businesses. If you can get these guys loose-lipped and buzzed enough so they're talking, you're going to pick up all these pretty invaluable strategies. And I'd say a lot of that training, a lot of that matriculation of mine was done over fat steaks and bourbon, right? Sitting around having a pint, talking about how do you solve issues, whether they're related to us as a group directly or what they're dealing with somebody else or what I'm dealing with somebody else. I think it's a good learning opportunity.
Yeah, I had a conversation like that randomly at a resort bar in Hollywood Beach, Florida. Yeah. I think this guy may have been flirting with my wife. He was probably in his 70s, and I just happened to be there. And it turns out he was a billionaire. And what tipped me off was when he talked about his yacht that he had built was being shown in a show just up the coast. But I asked him a question. So what's your best advice for growing a business? And he smiled and got this sparkle in his eye and he just came alive. And he said, always be an arms dealer. Always be an arms dealer. And so that was a great lesson. Any of those lessons that you've learned over fat steaks and bourbon that come to mind that really stand out to you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I don't know that I necessarily agree with this idea in its entirety, but I was just having a discussion with a client, and I asked him, so do you add people to your workforce first, or do you go out and get the work and then hire people? Because I always, I struggle with that. I'll find a really great person, and it's like, do I bring them on the bench, commit to so much a year, recurring cost, without, knowing I have a signed contract? And he was flat out, always have a signed contract first. Always have the work in hand first. And, for the most part, I'd say that I do operate on that basis, but I think I make an exception if I find somebody great. If I find the right person that's going to fit our culture, that's going to just drop right in, be this autonomous project delivery vehicle, then I'll take the risk. But if there's some risk involved with hiring somebody, then I'll likely wait till we sign a PO. And that's something I learned from him.
So one thing I know about you is that you're really good. Well, there is no line between you and your customers that you're concerned about crossing. You've told me about how you've helped people get their houses painted, get their pool fixed. You'll do just about anything for a client. So what have you learned about how to really scratch your client's itch? Like, how do you become that easy button? What are some of the practical things you do? Either tactics you use, things you do, the way you think about scratching your client's itches.
I think this is probably a recent learning of mine. I haven't always understood this, but I feel like I've always thought that clients are looking for the best deal. And I think it's the nature of the construction process, right? It's always, or generally, it's bid out work. You're in a ring with other people. You're competing for work. You're trying to demonstrate what you've done. It's the dog and pony show. And I try to just not compete in that type of setting, because it's like validating how great I am is not what's important to a client. And I go back to what I was saying. So, that thinking sometimes is driven by who's going to be the cheapest. And then I can say, like, in so many cases, clients aren't fundamentally fixated on how much something will cost initially. I work largely or primarily with owner operators. So these are not just people that are going to build a building and sell it out or rent it out. They're going to be in it in some form or fashion. And that group can't have mistakes. What do I mean by they can't have mistakes? We're starting out 3 years before they deliver their building, they take possession, and we are not going to get everything right. The thousands of decisions that get made on a construction project, there's going to be a few things wrong. Something might be the wrong color. Something might look bad, but you can't screw up the fundamental things in those buildings that could impact their business. Drains, lighting levels, temperatures, humidity, process flow, product flow, people flow. They can't afford to get those things right. So I focus more on those things. And I focused on those things primarily in the first third of the project, making sure that what gets onto these drawings is right. I don't ever expect that it's the architect, the engineer's responsibility to get the drawings right. We make mistakes. We do. I'm open about that. But we try our best to make sure that what gets onto prints is what's going to actually functionally serve the client. Because then everything else is, and I don't want to downplay construction, but it is going through the motions. It's hiring trades, it's scheduling them, it's getting them on site, it's making sure their work's up to a certain level, paying them, keeping everybody in line, getting it wrapped up, delivering it to the client. But that first bit, the spec, the finish of the building, I would say that that's a little bit more important than money for most people.
How do you get to the needs? How do you really get your arms around and uncover what the customer's needs are for the building so you can avoid those mistakes that are incredibly expensive, maybe even impossible to fix further down the line?
I think it's an iterative process. And I would say that a lot of clients are actually embarrassed to admit that they don't know what they don't know, or to admit what they don't know. And what's worse than that is they don't know what they don't know. So they've been operating in a building for so long, they've been leasing some space, their business works, it makes money. That's why they're building another building. So there's a big part of them was like, well, I've done this, it's worked, this is the way things are set up. Why would we do things differently? And I think there's a few little strategies you can implement that, don't cost a lot, but raise and create awareness for a person embarking on a project. One thing we do a lot of, where possible, barring any confidentiality type things, is I try to arrange tours for clients through other buildings if I can. I try to take clients through their competitors' buildings. I try to take clients through ancillary or supporting buildings of their industry. It's funny how open people will be to having somebody come through their building and learn about their experiences in building. We have a pretty decent sized cold storage that we've been involved with in BC. We built 430,000 square feet of it, and they've let us take everybody through the cold storage. And it's amazing what people learn. Man, we need to make our loading dock higher. We need to switch out the kind of equipment we use at our loading dock. It's antiquated. We need to automate this system. We need to look at our lighting levels. We need to run this room colder. Man, we need to change our doors. So I try to expose, where possible, I try to expose people to similar projects so they can get some awareness. I think another thing that helps people is meetings. In the contractor designer world, you do a lot of things in writing and via email. And in my mind, that's a pretty poor way to get information from people. The nice thing about meetings is, especially with Zoom culture, everybody's looking at each other's face in the comfort of your own office or home, got your own cup of coffee. And when you're talking to people, they let their guards down. You can really share information with them that they're going to need to make these upfront capital decisions. So we would do a ton of Zoom meetings initially with a client when we embark on a project. It's not usually a closed door. Probably are my two biggest strategies for that kind of thing.
Good stuff. And I agree. I think the more time you spend up front, the slower you go on the front end of a project, really understanding the needs, really assessing what the program of the space wants to be. It dramatically reduces the delivery time, reduces changes down the road, makes everything so much smoother. But it's also contrary to human nature. Human nature seems to be, let's just get to the next thing. Let's just get bids in. Let's get a contract signed. Let's get a lease signed. So great advice there. You say every builder should be a designer. Talk about the importance of the design aspect, or engineers specifically on the construction side. And maybe why do you say every builder should be a designer?
I don't want to be a dancing monkey for anybody. That's just contrary to my life's purpose. I'm not a dancing monkey. I want to be a part of the reason why people are doing things. So what do I mean by be a designer? I'm not saying go and start, actively designing projects and taking, doing engineering and all that. You still need all those registered professionals, but I think that it is way more constructive and lucrative, quite frankly, to be sitting at the table with clients up front, making design decisions with them and the architect. We have our own drafts people at Glacier. We actually do tons of sketches. We do sketches to support architects. We do drawings and layouts and details based on our construction experience, and we share those with architects. And it's an integrated type dialogue we get going nice and early, so that they're putting on drawings what we're used to building and what we know will work, because at the end of the day, if something goes wrong, it's our warranty. I think that having that depth, it does two things. First, it gives a client and an architect comfort that they've got somebody at the table that's going to support them and is not looking to point the finger at them when stuff goes wrong. The reason I advocate for this wholeheartedly is, and I know there's other delivery methods out there like IPD and anything where you are all equals at the table up front, it will limit or take away the finger pointing down the road. And finger pointing through construction is the absolute worst thing to be a part of. I mean, it's toxic. It wears on everybody. It gets you nowhere. You know, changes are the worst when things go wrong. So yeah, I think that clients need to, or rather contractors need to start upping their game on what they bring to the table during the design process. You can't just be sitting there saying, well, yeah, it's going to cost this much and it'll take this long. In my mind, that's rather shallow input from a contractor. You need to be saying it's going to cost this much. It's going to take this long. It's going to last this long. Here's some pros to it. Here's some downsides to it. And have you considered moving this wall or getting rid of it entirely because it's impeding the flow? Like, you've got to bring more to the table than just cost and schedule.
Absolutely. Let's talk about quality control. How important is it? And then how does it tie into sales? How does quality control tie into sales?
Well, you know, if I go back to, and I can't speak for every model, but at least in our model, we don't have an active sales team. So our people are our sales team. And you're pretty much only as good as your last shift in this business. And we've had some shifts go wrong. You know, we've had projects where at the end, through various levels of poor approvals and you know, just downright screw ups by people under our supervision, you end up with mistakes. So I'm speaking about how do you mitigate that stuff? I think that it comes from a top-down approach. I've had a lot of people say to me, well, you should just get a dedicated QC guy that goes around. They have a QC manual and you have you fix yourself to a certain standard and it's just QC'd throughout the world. Construction projects are vastly different than building widgets in a manufacturing facility. I think that owners of construction companies and the senior people, construction managers or, you know, general managers, VPs, they need to be on construction sites. So can't just show up when you sign the PO and when the thing's over. You've got to get your boots on the ground as an owner, as a leader. You know, superintendents, project managers, they will go on as long as they need to because it's their job. But the people within your organization that actually have the relevant experience, they need to be doing on-site visits. And if that means taking them out of roles or taking away responsibilities that are administrative or, you know, financial, we've got to shed that stuff away and keep them focused on operations, keep them focused on being on site. I think that's the key to QC. And then at the end of the day, you're going to turn over a better product. And it just goes back to the whole stay in the repeat referral zone. Just keep doing work for the same people.
Why do you say senior executives and business owners need to be doing job site visits for quality control?
I think that sometimes there's, what's the right word? Where you walk past something every day and you don't realize it's not right. You know, I think there's this kind of ignorance that can develop just because somebody said it's done. You know, this section of curb is done. And then a superintendent says, well, it looks done to me, shows it to a client who doesn't know what done means. And client says, that looks great. It's done. It's concrete. It's smooth. Then everybody checks it off as done and keeps going. But it might not be done. It might have bug holes in it. The flashings might be installed wrong. The coving might need to be redone. It might not be straight. You know, there's this level of doneness that ultimately you as or me as an owner of a business or our senior people as project managers we're putting our names to it, you know? And so just saying that our superintendents are going to look after it I think it's bullshit. I think we have to show up and take some responsibility with them, right? it's kind of unfair to them with all the chaos of what a superintendent goes through to just lump all this stuff onto them and hope it gets done. You've got to provide a little bit of stewardship on site, and it ain't that hard. It ain't that hard. I've seen senior construction executives drive their truck onto a site, walk around for an hour, type the list up on their iPhone, send it to the soup, copy their project manager, and go to lunch. But that bit of work right there it's imperative to delivering something that's got a standard at the end of the day.
Yeah, you're right. There's this familiarity that comes with walking by something every day. And then there's also the optimism. It's sort of like, I'm optimistic that it's good enough, but I know it's probably not. And I just hope it will, I can kick this can on down the road, but because that person is close to it and they have to solve it. So when there's a disconnect between when there's somebody who can just identify issues and they don't have to solve them, and there's some separation there, it really helps. And I think it's important for quality and probably for safety and a few other things, because we have this bias, right? This confirmation bias, or we tend to focus on the positive things and we ignore the negative things.
Right.
And yeah, so great advice. Let's talk about people. What are the keys to retention, and how are you doing it? Well, let's start with this. How are you finding good people, and then how are you keeping them?
So I used to work for a big national general contractor who is no more. They were doing a few $100 million a year. And right about the time that I was leaving them, a whole group of staff told them, look, you guys have a very toxic workplace. You've got to do something about that. This place is a toxic workplace. So they had a town hall meeting. Everybody came into the atrium and, vented their concerns. And then I remember everybody going away, coming back the next week, and there were stickers all over the atrium and on people's offices. And the sticker said, "Dare to be Christine, aim to be Neil, dare to be this." I remember these dare to be stickers everywhere. I'm thinking, what is this? They had hired a corporate culture consultant or advisor to come in and create a better culture. It was the worst thing ever. It was so bad. People didn't want to participate in it. People felt like they were being governed, audited. It made people become more closed off. People didn't talk about their problems. It was awful. And it was a part of the reason I left that place, because they gave me some really great opportunities, huge work. But I felt like they didn't arm me with enough support as a young man to do my job. And had they done a few things differently, I always say this to my wife, I'd still be there. Because there are things I liked about that place. And I guess this is anecdotal, I'm talking about my own experience, but I didn't want to work in a place where I didn't feel an immense kinship with the people I worked with. My mother was a government clerk, 35 years. She couldn't wait to punch her clock out and go home. And I heard the stories of that, and I was like, man, I don't want to do that for my life. So when I left and joined Glacier West, I joined my predecessor, who I bought the business from. He just had great values. He treated me like a friend. He invited me to his family home. I got to meet his children, his grandchildren. We spent time fishing together. We spent time working side by side together. He never raised his voice at me in 10 years. He treated me like gold. He trusted me. He taught me when I was doing things wrong. He coached me. And we ended up just becoming like family, to the point that when I bought his business and, the deal was done, he came back and worked. He still works with us. Like, we work together, and I hope we work together till one of us is done. But then what happened is, subsequently, people that joined our company, they were coming because I think they wanted that kind of culture. So we don't interview a ton of people at Glacier West, because most of the people we interview the first time around we end up hiring them. And I know, I can count on one hand the number of people we've had to let go because of performance issues. It's minuscule, and it's usually because, quite frankly, they were on drugs, or they had an alcohol problem, or repressed alcohol problem. They had a problem with like a toxic form of anger, something that just was way out there that they needed some help with, and it was affecting their employment. But outside of that, pretty much everything we've kind of worked through together. And you could take any single person that works at Glacier West, and they would tell you that we're a family. So how do we maintain this culture, create this culture? I don't know that we even create it. It's just caring about people, taking an interest in their weekends on Monday, taking an interest on their weekends. And if a guy's really stressed out on a call, picking up the phone an hour later, hey man, is everything okay? You sounded worn out. I've finished conference calls and been confronted by staff saying, Neil, are you okay, man? You sounded wiped on that call. And, I'll say, I had this personal issue, or I have this, or I'm lacking sleep, whatever. Just, it's the truth. We all go through these things, right? And you try to not let it affect your work, but that shit wears on your head. So we all just let it out. And, I think because we're so driven as a group to take care of this group, this book of business we have, and keep ourselves employed, gainfully employed, we can focus on taking care of each other a little bit. And that's what I think is, if a company can just move towards a family style culture where people feel like they're part of a family, it's 40% of your life that you spend at work with these people. You're going to have people that are happy. You're going to have people that want to stay. You're not going to be looking for people all the time. And then you'll attract good people, because all these people that work for us, I've got people that have been here for 12 years, like as long as the company's been around, and they're going to be with us right to the bitter end. And I suspect that they at dinner tell other people about their work life, and that brings people to our door.
Yeah, there's a myth that's propagated right now that it's impossible to find good people. Everybody's busy. There are no good people to find. And what I've seen, you're a prime example, and I work with several other folks from all over the US. There are good people, and they are actively looking for better work cultures to go to work for. And
Right.
Yeah, they're gainfully employed and they're really busy, but they're looking for a better experience, looking for a better culture. Yeah. Let's talk about delegation. This is one of the things that we worked together and talked a lot about a few years ago when we started working together. But what have you learned to be some of the keys to effective delegation?
Yeah, oh man, that's a tough question. I would say that delegating as a principle is kind of easy. There are steps that you can take to start delegating. I mean, I would say that you taught me how to delegate in a big way through your coaching program, but it's, not dealing with things directly. It's understanding the issue, developing some outline parameters for resolving the issue, and then arming the key person or the two key people with the issue and saying, look, this is the issue. Clients come to us. We got to deal with this. These are the parameters. We can't go outside it. We can't spend more than this. We have to make sure it delivers this. Go figure it out. If you need my help, give me a buzz. I'm here, right? But that's just a very basic form of delegation, I think. And I think you've got to take it a step further. the first thing you've got to do is you've got to get people just into the habit of doing that for themselves. And a part of that is just staying the heck out of the way. And it's really hard for me, like, because I'm involved at project level in a lot of stuff. And sometimes I go and I interject myself into these projects and I start making decisions and I think I'm being helpful, but I'm not. I've had project managers call me right after going, dude, you pissed on my starter fire there. Why would you make that call? It's not in their contract to do this, or you don't even understand the agreements we made before. You know what I mean? So it's actually letting other people run with it and then chiming in when it's your time to chime in. Listen. And the other thing is, just because you delegated to somebody doesn't mean you gave them autonomy. Just because you told somebody to do something doesn't mean you've given them autonomy. I think autonomy it's a collective thing. It's in perpetuity. It's somebody knowing that at the end of the day, they've got a group of people behind their back that's got their back. So they're just going to make decisions on their own, and they're comfortable doing it. And they're comfortable not reporting to you all the time. Like, quite often I find out about stuff right when we get a bill or after it's done, and you know what I mean? Like, and somebody will sit there, and then a client once asked me, he goes, Neil, did you know this was happening? And my project manager chimed in and said, nope, he didn't know. Neil didn't know. I insulated him from this issue the whole way through. And I remember the client looking at the project manager and looking at me, and I think he was impressed. Either that or he was disgusted, one of the two, but I think he was impressed that we had gone from this, got to run Neil every time, to, all right, so this guy can do some shit and he doesn't need to be going to Neil all the time. It's empowering. And so that now that guy's built some clout for himself to the point where people are now just calling them directly when there's a new project. And you don't want to be going to the guy in charge for everything. They're not armed to handle all your day-to-days. They're going to flutter because they're too busy. I know some executives that you call them, they'll say, yeah, I'm on it, I'm going to do it. And it's bullshit. They're not going to. It falls off their radar. They forget about it, so I think taking delegation to a level of creating a level of autonomy is more important.
Great advice. Great advice. Well, we've been working together for a little over 3 years, almost 3.5 years now. What was the challenge or the problem that you were having that led you to contact me about working together initially?
Yeah, sure. So I think I've said this before. When I first contacted you, we were a profitable company. We had good work with great clients. We had a staff base, so the wheels were turning. The machine was working. But I felt like I was in constant firefighting mode. I didn't have enough depth as a person to lead my business. And I don't got a problem being open about that. I was in my early 30s, running a fairly sophisticated machine. And I just did. I lack experience. So, I was struggling to learn how to handle problems. My father-in-law is a sushi chef. And I asked him, I said, how did you learn to make sushi? And he goes, in Japan, nobody teaches you anything. So how did you learn? He goes, when the chef makes the sauce and turns around to go get his knife, you need to lick the sauce on the edge of the bowl and taste it and see what he put in it. You got to steal the magic sauce from people. That's how you become a great sushi chef. And so I was doing that, picking up little bits of information here and there. But the problem with that was I was in over my head. I was young and I needed more guidance and somebody that could just constantly support me for a little while. Once those systems started sticking a little bit in the organization and with the outside world, we found our own mojo, right? And I've said this to you before. It's the truth of it. As long as the wheels are turning here at Glacier West, I'm going to continue coaching with you, because it pays to have somebody look at that knows your entire organization, look at it and say, all right, here's the 3 or 4 things that you do poorly. Total shit. It's poor. And this is what we're going to do to try and fix it. Can't always fix it, but you can try. That, and again, having that asset, that's not part of your organization also. That's the other thing. We have great people within our organization that are always just doing great stuff, but there's a few issues where you need a better perspective. And at least for me, and this might not apply to everybody, but we're based in Western Canada, right? I would say we're a little bit behind some bigger construction sectors in terms of technology, implementation. And so, having you as an ally, because you're talking to people in Missouri and in Texas and all over the place, all those little, those emails and those resources that you send me, they help our business.
Well, I appreciate that. Take us to the moment when you realized that the work you were doing in the coaching program was actually working.
Yeah, I mean, it was my phone. My phone started ringing less. That's what it boiled down to. My phone was ringing like crazy and frantic, and and I think that's a part of starting a new business and growing it. I think it's unavoidable. You have to go through that frenzy of stuff as you find your legs. But yeah, I think through some systems and processes that are pretty ninja level, you get to just not having to be contacted all the time, because there's an infrastructure for making decisions, for doing things. Hey, I mean, my phone still rings, don't get me wrong, and I want it to ring because I love what I do, but it's not ringing with how do you deal with this issue and that issue. So I would say that's the biggest change. It's just freed me up to do more executive level stuff. So
how's your life different now after the work you've done over the past 3 years? What are some of the other things you're freed up to do? How's your headspace different? How is life different is probably, that's the general question. How is life different now after the work you've done?
There's two sides to it. I think from Glacier West's perspective, I'm not Glacier West. Glacier West is Glacier West. So I think that business runs really well. We may, there's issues, don't get me wrong, there's issues, but there's a framework for pretty much everything. And the people that work there are all a part of this framework that's built, to the point that if I ever wanted to sell Glacier West now, it would be harder than it was to buy it. Because I feel like all these people that work with us are almost like partners. I'd have to consult with so many people before I did a change like that. I wouldn't just up and try to get out of this business without having the buy-in of, I'd say 80% of our staff. So the people are ingrained. There's a way for everyone to function. And again, stuff goes wrong, not perfect, but the business has a framework for operating. For me personally, it's understanding how to deal with anxiety. And the anxiety, and it's not a conventional anxiety, I'm not an anxious person, but being a leader is generally a lonely experience. So you're responsible for everybody's work. Ultimately, you're not always watching everybody do what they do. You have to be able to think on your feet, come up with answers. You can't shirk responsibility. You can't blame the people that are working for you, with you, your vendors. No, you're ultimately always accountable. And it's kind of shitty sometimes. It gets tough when the buck stops at your desk. So I think you've helped me, realize what it means to be a leader in the sector. And how do you not personalize these issues? How do you deal with things so everybody walks away feeling a little bit respected and and wants to keep moving forward? You're not going to win every one of these. People will walk away unhappy at times. It's just the reality of life. But you try your best and keep going, and I think that's how you help me, Todd.
Well, you are definitely a great implementer, which is the key to any kind of success. One of probably the best implementer that I've ever worked with. So, yeah, congratulations on the success. And we talk a lot about company growth and how much do you want to grow, and how do you think about company growth now? Do you have growth goals? Is it more organic? How would you describe your philosophy around growing the business?
So my philosophy, for right or for wrong, is it used to be financial. I was a greedy little bugger. I wanted to make a lot of money, and I have realized that there's no end to that, and that money isn't everything. I have a family, a growing family, and I see the value in some other things. But I think the growth of the business for me now is largely to support my staff. I think it's to support my staff. So how do I do, what do I mean by that is I have a roster of people that work at Glacier West, and I know, again, I don't hold myself personally responsible, but I work damn hard every day to make sure there's enough work in the hopper so all of them can stay employed with us, have a job, do what they want to do, and we can still have some fun together, because I love working with the people I work with right now. And it's not just my staff. I mean, we work with a lot of consultants and vendors, and man, you can't help but become friends. So I want to keep doing this because I think I get something out of all those relationships and being a part of the community. I enjoy deriving an income from it, obviously. And then the third bit is you at times are not in charge of your growth. Everyone sets milestones, sets goals, benchmarks, and that's great. Got to do that. But it is an element of it is organic. You're not always going to have access to huge projects. We're doing some huge projects, and in a while those projects will be done, and there may not be other huge projects. So it's nice to remind. It's kind of fun. You got to remind yourself that, hey, one time, a long time ago in a blue moon, I used to do $200,000 rentals, and maybe I got to do those for a while. And there's nothing wrong with lapsing back and doing some of that stuff, right? A lot of companies have special project divisions, and whenever a project's under a certain value or whatever, they just pawn it off to that division. We don't do that here. Everybody does the $50 million projects, and everybody does the $50,000 projects. And if that means that when our growth lacks a little bit, yeah, I don't worry about it too much. I know that under my guidance, the company may not ever be as big as a national construction chain could be, but I'm at peace with that. I like working with smaller firms and helping them build their buildings, and I think there's a place for a company of my size in the marketplace. So I don't know if that answered the question. Probably not really.
Yeah, actually, it's a great answer to the question about your philosophy on growth, and I think it's a really good statement that sometimes, and maybe to a large degree, your growth is not up to you, and it is organic. It's one of those things that is outside of your control. But what I'm hearing you say is you're not so focused on growth, but you're focused on the leading indicators of growth, and focused on, let's take care of our people. Let's attract good people. Let's keep them around. Let's take really good care of our customers. And those are, I think it's more important to spend your time focusing on the activities and the habits and the behaviors that will lead to growth than to obsess about results. So yeah, I think it's a great answer to the question. One of my favorite questions to ask is this next question, which is, what is one thing you believe to be true about business that some may think is unconventional, maybe even a little crazy?
I would say that owning, managing, being a leader is not for everybody. There's stuff all over YouTube about how anybody can do it. Anybody can run their own shop. You can start a business. You can do this. You can make that. You can do this. You can do that. I don't believe it's for everybody. If you're going to start one of these journeys and make it the whole way through, there's going to be days when you want to throw up in your mouth. There's stuff that goes wrong as a leader that just it sucks. It sucks. It does. The days are few and far between, and they should be, but they exist. And I've had to become cool with those things happening to me. You know, understanding that, all right, man, this day kind of sucked. That my night's not going to be as great as I thought it was because I had all this crap happen to me at work. I can't shut it down. It's a little bit of you do kind of wear it. So yeah, that would be it's not even advice. It's just that, you know, if somebody's really just constantly struggling in leading their business, then maybe they need coaching, or maybe they need to get another leader involved. You know, I've no shame to say that my company got a lot better because we brought some senior people on that manage projects better than I do. You know, how can I? I'm not a veteran. I don't have the experience. So you've got to eat some humble pie, I think, and make sure that you are cut out for this kind of work, because there's days where it's just a little bit toxic. It's not great. And you've got to be okay with that happening and have some tools mentally to get through life. The hard part of being a leader.
I agree. I think the mental toughness aspect is something that most people don't understand. If you want to start your own business, grow a business, lead a large team, then you'd better develop your mental toughness. And it's not taught in business school because most of those people probably aren't entrepreneurs, and mental toughness is typically developed. But the people who are successful entrepreneurs, they have mental toughness, and that's not something you probably won't see a course being offered or some 5-day challenge, a 5-day mental toughness challenge on Instagram or Facebook. They'll try to sell you on some dream, but a lot of people get punched in the face, and they don't have the mental tools. They don't have those frameworks for dealing with the bad days and the setbacks and the adversity and the inner critic and fear and anxiety. But I think that's where the game is won or lost. And
that's right.
I would tend to agree. There are some people who it's just not for them, and that's okay. Not everybody is destined or called to be an entrepreneur, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's being the number 2 person is a great place to be. I think being an employee is a fantastic place to be. Everybody has a place, and if you're not in the right spot, you're going to feel that stress. And I think it's important to find out, where should you be? Because I believe there is a spot that you're supposed to be where things work well, and it may not be at the helm. It's tough.
I've realized, Todd, nobody's a number 1. Even though I'm the general manager at Stewie or at Glacier West, I'm not number 1. I'm always a number 2.
Customers number 1. That's right.
Yeah, customers number 1. And if they're not number 1, your staff are having issues, and you got to help them through their stuff. So you're number 2 there. And then as soon as I drop my work bag off and walk in the house, I'm like number 3, going on number 4. So I'm constantly being put in my place in the hierarchy.
This is true. A wife and small children will keep you in your place. Yeah, that's for sure. And one of the things I've realized is that whenever I'm frustrated, whenever I've been frustrated or disappointed, it's always when I'm concerned about one guy. And it's me.
Yeah.
And when I'm happiest is when I'm concerned about other people. And I'm trying to train myself just recently to be more focused on, instead of being focused on my results, my revenue, my whatever, because frankly, I'm never satisfied with my results. But if I can obsess over getting results for other people, instead of being focused on Todd being happy, if I can focus on keeping my wife happy and keeping my kids fulfilled and getting results for everybody around me, that takes care of me being happy. And it took me a long time to figure that out. But I think you're right. You'll never be number one. And if you think that you are going to be, you're probably setting yourself up for disappointment.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
So let's talk about some advice. What advice would you have for people who are relatively new to the industry, maybe early in their career in the construction industry?
I think, at least for me, this has been a reason I'm successful, I think. And I'm not by no means excelling in the game and not the greatest at this, but something that has helped me immensely is the whole sushi chef thing I'm talking about, stealing the sauce. So there's all this stuff you learn in school, right? Engineering school, business school, whatever it is. You learn your craft. You learn how to do your craft and put the pieces together. But your work is an art form. It's more than just those things, those steps you go through. And to learn the art form, you need a mentor. And, in a way, I think your coaching program is good for that. But for a lot of people might not be able to afford your coaching program or just, it's not for them or whatever the case may be. I think that, and I've said this before, I think there's a lot of unsolicited advice that you can get from people. And I feel like the younger generation, and I'm saying 10 years, my juniors approximately, don't take advantage of that enough. They've all got to eat some humble pie and pick up the phone. And it may not be within your own organization. Taking a mechanical contractor out for lunch, saying, hey, can I buy you lunch someday? Take them to a favorite watering hole, whatever. And just how does it work? Explain a mechanical ventilation system to me. Where do you put your condensers? Why do you put your condensers there? How do you control it? Why do you put the controls there? Asking a bunch of stupid questions over lunch. Anything you can do like that to get yourself accessibility to somebody who has 20, 30, 40 years experience, to understand how they design systems, build systems, how they solve problems, how they deal with people. That's the key. And the way to accelerate your growth when you're a junior in this world is to be open to go and learn from other senior people. But you've got to eat the humble pie. You've got to put yourself out there. You've got to admit to not knowing. So many younger people feel an insecurity that they need to express that they know, that they do. You don't know. You don't know. Every time I listen to the Dalai Lama, every time I listen to that guy in every speech, he says, I don't know. People ask him a question. He just goes, I don't know. It's all right to say you don't know, but then you got to surround yourself with people that do know and create a little toolbox for yourself of unsolicited, constructive knowledge.
I think that's fantastic advice, which I unintentionally used early in my career, just asking lots of questions.
Yeah.
What are some of the side effects of doing that? You obviously gain knowledge. You put tools in your toolbox, but what are some of the side effects of being transparent that you don't know and asking people questions like that?
I think, I don't know. I haven't met a person that knows everything. Even if they are leader of the greatest organization in the world, they all go to bed at night still not knowing a lot of things. And when you face that and admit to it, then you take away this sort of barrier you have to picking up more stuff. The side effect is you yourself, you're open, you pick up a lot of knowledge and all that, but the side effect is all these other people that are working around you, they're going to open up to you. And when you're in construction, dealing with 100 or 200 people throughout the course of a project to get it from a sketch to something somebody can use, people have to be able to dialogue together. And if you're pretending like you know or not speaking up because you don't know, you're actually creating a toxicity within that group of people. We have people in our company that lack experience. It's way better when we know that. We can shield them from clients. We can ensure they have somebody to talk to when they have issues about, construction issues, but also about just how to deal with the stress of construction. Construction is a stressful industry. It is. It's always deadline driven. You're always on the clock. You got to get stuff done. And if you're presenting like you are handling everything well, but you're not, you're setting yourself up for failure. Open yourself up, get talking to everybody, have an unsolicited coach to get technical advice from, and then have a solicited coach to talk to about the shitty days that happen with your job. I have them. Everybody in the organization has them. You just got to talk about them, right? And open up dialogue.
Yeah, that is such great advice. There is this belief that you have to know things. And look, if you're new to the industry, if you're a superintendent in the first couple of years, or a new project manager, relatively new estimator, whatever, you don't know. And that's okay. And the sooner you are transparent about that, the better off you're going to be. Yeah, great advice. All right. Well, great stuff. So you shared a lot of great insights here in the last hour or so, Neil. I want to be a good steward of your time. You've got an audience of a few thousand construction leaders and business owners and entrepreneurs. Anything else that you want to share with them? Any other bits of parting advice?
Yeah, sure. I get a lot of help from a lot of people, and I'm very lucky to have that help, and I get it from clients, I get it from my own staff base, and then I've got this huge network of people that, support me, my family, friends, and all that. And within, if people can be mindful of my own time, get a hold of Todd. If you ever need to talk to a construction guy about this, I'm happy to help somebody else. I've gotten some help, so I'm happy to pay it forward, kind of thing. You can get my contact info from Todd. We can schedule a call. I can help somebody along the way with some of the crap they're going through. Up there?
Fair enough. I like that. So I'll share some details on how you can get in touch with me at the end of the podcast. But if people want to check out your company website, maybe they're like, damn, I have got to work with this guy. I've got to get some of that Glacier West swag, which I wore to the gym the other day, by the way. And I got to say, I made that shirt look good.
Nice.
But if people want to follow you, find your website, apply for a job, where should they go?
Our website's the best way to get a hold of us, www.glacierwest.ca. We have a section under careers. If you're looking for work, if you're looking for somebody to help you deliver a project, you can get a hold of us through there, or get a hold of me through Todd.
Sounds great. Neil, always a pleasure, my friend. And I look forward to another boondoggle like we had in Denver earlier this year, where we got together with our wives and hung out for a few days. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, man, for sure. And I appreciate everything you did for me, Todd. And I'm here if you need my help too.
I know it. Thanks a lot, Neil.
Okay, buddy.
There you go. I hope you got a lot out of that conversation. As always, I recommend taking action. Pick one thing or a couple of things that you took away from Neil and apply it. Make it show up in your life. Put together an execution plan, turn it into a habit, create some goals around it, do something to make it show up in your life. That way you're going to get some value out of this conversation. As always, you can check out the show notes for the links and the resources that were mentioned in this podcast episode. And if you own a construction business and you would like to discuss working with me one-on-one in my coaching program, you can take the first step and schedule a free strategy call with me over at constructionleadingedge.com. That's constructionleadingedge.com. As always, thank you so much for the ratings and the reviews. If you could take a moment, leave a rating or review on the podcast player of your choice, that would mean a lot to me and it would help spread the word. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Todd DeWalt. I'll see you next time. As I was saying earlier, Infratec heaters are a top choice for contractors building outdoor spaces. They're easy to spec and install during construction or renovation. Clients love them because they have a great heat output, they look beautiful, and they're easy to operate. All of their products and controls are American-made and include exclusive options like smart home integration and hands-free voice activation. For a free consultation, visit infratec-usa.com/leading edge.